Welcome again. Today's program is Creating Age-Friendly Communities in a case study, Preventing Senior Bullying. And my name is Ken Larimore. I'm with the University of Illinois Extension and an educator in community and economic development. Thank you all for taking the time to participate in this webinar, offered through the university's Local Government Education LGE program. Today's webinar will be recorded and made available on our local government education website and the YouTube channel. To ensure the best quality in our recording, microphones will be muted during the presentation. We do encourage you to add questions or issues in connecting in the chat space. The speakers will respond to the questions either during the program or try to get to them at the end. If you can't connect with Skype, then plan B is you can dial in from your landline, as I have mentioned previously. Again, today's webinar is Creating Age-Friendly Communities in a case study, Preventing Senior Bullying. We are excited to have three expert speakers today. First, Dr. Wendy Bartlow, then Chelsea Byers-Gerstenecker, and Carla Belzer. I'm going to give an introduction for all three at the beginning here. Wendy Bartlow currently works as an outreach specialist for the Center on Health, Aging, and Disability at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. She is responsible for the day-to-day management of age-friendly Champaign-Urbana. Wendy completed her doctorate in anthropology and a pre-doctoral fellowship in gerontology at Wayne State University in Detroit, where she spent 2 years researching the lives of older adults in Detroit neighborhoods. Chelsea Byers-Gerstenecker is the Family Life Educator for the University of Illinois Extension, serving Champaign, Ford, Iroquois, and Vermilion counties. Her specialty is in aging issues with a focus on brain health and dementia. Chelsea provides a community-based training and education on life issues affecting families, adults, and individuals as they age. She works closely with community groups and organizations. Carla Belzer is the Family Life Educator for Unit 4, serving Carroll, Lee, and Whiteside counties. Carla provides community-based training and education on life issues. She works closely with community groups and organizations serving families, adults, and seniors. So at this time, I will turn it over to our presenters. Welcome Dr. Wendy Bartlow, Chelsea Byers-Gerstenecker, and Carla Belzer.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you for being here.
Hi, everyone. I'm really excited today to talk about how to make cities livable for people of all ages, and in particular, the Age-Friendly Communities Initiative. So like Ken said, my name is Wendy Bartlow, and I am with the Center on Health, Aging, and Disability at the U of I in Urbana-Champaign. I am responsible for the day-to-day management of age-friendly Champaign-Urbana. So I am housed within the Center on Health, Aging, and Disability at the University of Illinois. We are an interdisciplinary center within the College of Applied Health Science. Our goal is really to support research on health, aging, and disability, anything that promotes health, wellness, healthy aging, support health all the way across the lifespan, healthy communities, and we want people of all abilities to participate in life to whatever extent they would like to participate in life. So we do this really through two ways. We support research on health, aging, and disability, and we are the outreach arm of the College of Applied Health Sciences. So our major outreach project right now is we are the logistical home of Age Friendly Champaign-Urbana. So Age Friendly Champaign-Urbana is really, it is a community-driven initiative. Leaders from from both of our cities came together and decided that this was something that they wanted to have in our community and approached us to see what kind of support we could provide. So in this role, we do a lot of the organizing, we do a lot of the coordinating, we host regular meetings and events, and we also serve as the liaison to the AARP and the World Health Organization. So I want to talk a little bit about what age friendly is. And I think that there's a lot of confusion sometimes that people think that age friendly is a designation. It is not a designation, but it is a process. And the idea behind age friendly is that by joining this network of age friendly communities, communities are making a public commitment to be livable for people of all ages. It's not a designation in the sense that, you know, come here, it's a great place for older people to live, even though it might be, and we certainly think Champaign-Urbana is. It's not a designation, it's a process and a public commitment. So this program was started in 2006 by the World Health Organization. It's a worldwide program. And it was started in response to upcoming demographic shifts. We know that there are going to be a lot more older people worldwide in the next several decades. So, and notice that I say demographic shifts as opposed to I think a lot of times these terms get thrown around like silver tsunami or the challenge of a rapidly aging population. It's a shift in demographics. It's not an upcoming disaster, which is one of the things I hate about the term silver tsunami, is that there are a lot of opportunities with an increased aging population worldwide. And it doesn't, the idea is that people need, that communities need people of all ages to be thriving places, and therefore communities also need to be livable for people of all ages. So this program was it was initiated by the World Health Organization. They started out with 9 cities worldwide to pilot this program. The first one in the United States was Portland, Oregon. It's now spread through 20 countries, and there are more than 1,000 communities worldwide who have made this public commitment to be age friendly. So in the United States, the World Health Organization has partnered with the AARP. AARP is the service agent of the Age Friendly in the United States. They provide the framework, they provide the assistance, they work with the World Health Organization. They are the ones who approve applications to the network of age-friendly communities. And so they provide the assistance, they provide the process, and you'll see on the screen here this graphic that I have set up that looks like a flower. These are the domains of age friendliness that the World Health Organization and the AARP have agreed that any community that wants to be a part of this network of age-friendly communities needs to address all of these domains. And to make their community livable for people of all ages. Now, notice that I keep saying livable for people of all ages, because a lot of times this comes up when I'm out presenting at community groups or talking to people about age-friendly. People say, well, why are we focusing just on older people? Why aren't we focusing on children, making communities livable for children? And although there is a focus in age-friendly on older adults, the idea is that if you're addressing all these domains holistically, if you're looking at all of these different things, you should make the community livable for people of all ages, because the idea is what's good for older people is often good for families, it's often good for children, it's often good for persons with limited mobility of all ages. And people of varying ages oftentimes want a lot of the same things. They want safe communities, they want safe streets, they want nice parks and outdoor spaces, they want good public transportation, they want good community and health services. So by making these things more accessible for older adults or people with mobility issues, you're not making them any less accessible for anyone else. So you are really making the community more livable for people of all ages. So part of the process that the AARP has set forth, and I'll talk a little bit more about process in a minute, is that all of these domains you have to you do some assessment of your community and kind of figure out where you stand in each of these domains, and then make an action plan to develop improvements. So a little bit about the process. So communities are required to apply to the AARP to be part of this network of communities. We applied in the winter of 2017. We were approved to join the network in March of 2017, and the first couple of years really are a planning phase, an assessment and planning phase. It is a requirement to once you have joined the network, to do some kind of assessment of your community, to gather some kind of data on what it is like to be an older person in your community. From there, and this is really where we are right now, we completed a survey last year of 500 older community members to get feedback on how they viewed their community. So, and this might be a survey, it might be focus groups. The nice thing about this process is that it is adaptable enough to fit different community needs. It's interesting because so many different types of communities have joined the network. You think about somewhere like Age Friendly Los Angeles is very different than Age Friendly Champaign-Urbana. And so the process really can be modified and adapted based on your community size, your community resources, and what kinds of things your community would like to do. It's not a rigid process. There are certain steps and checkpoints that you need to meet as a community, but everybody's action plan will not look the same. So the first part is really, it's completing the survey, assessing what are your strengths and weaknesses as a community, and then from there developing an action plan of what are you going to change in your community? How are you going to make it more livable for people of all ages? And one of the nice things about the AARP as the service agent is they're very accessible to you as a community. We've had phone conversations with the Livable Communities people from AARP. They happened to be in town for a conference. Several of our group met with them. They will Skype into meetings. They provide all kinds of materials, newsletters. They're very accessible. And then the idea is you don't just implement your action plan and then say, we've done a great job, now we're age friendly. This is an ongoing process that basically you've implemented these steps, you evaluate these steps, and then you go back to the beginning. What do we want to do? And it's an ongoing process. It doesn't just stop. So like I said, the AARP has a lot of great tools online to assess the age friendliness of your community, or just to get a jumping off point, really. And one of their interesting things, and I encourage you to check this out if you haven't before, is their Livability Index. And it can give you a good idea of where you as a community start for a baseline. You can see I've got our Twin Cities up here. And this is they pull from a lot of different data sources. So if you go online, you can look up your score, but then you can click on each one of these things to figure out where they got the data from. And it provides a really nice base point to kind of to see where you are as a community. And you notice we have scores of 58 and 57. Those are actually pretty good scores. The highest I've ever seen, I think, is someone in the 70s, and the lowest probably in the 30s or 40s. So I encourage you, if you haven't looked at this already, to go online and check out their Livability Index and see what other kinds of livable cities tools and information they have, because they've got a lot of great stuff. So we were the second community in Illinois to join the network, and the good news is that we're really excited that a lot of other people have been joining us just in the last year. So it's very exciting that this is spreading throughout the country. Maine, I think, has the biggest percentage of cities. They're looking to become an age-friendly state. They have just tons and tons of cities that have joined. So I encourage you, if this is something you're interested in, to talk to people in your community, talk to your local government, but don't just keep it within your community. It's also important to develop a network of age-friendly cities within our state. So I've had conversations with people from Age Friendly Evanston. I've talked to people from different age-friendly cities. Age Friendly Buffalo was a really good partner for us to just, they were kind of a mentor for us when we first joined, because they were also housed within a university. So I would have phone conversations with them to talk about things that worked or didn't work in their community, or any advice that they had for us. So if this is something you're interested in, you can always reach out to us as well. And my contact information is included in this presentation. But yeah, I would be happy to talk more in depth about our experiences or any advice that you'd be looking for in particular on a different phone conversation, just one-on-one. So one of the things I want to talk just a little bit about is who should be involved in this. And so I mentioned before that the logistical home of age-friendly Champaign-Urbana is at the university. And this is becoming an increasingly common model, because not only do universities have some resources, things like spaces to meet, and I mean, just things that community groups need: computers, telephones, copy machines, conference rooms. So we can provide a logistical home for it and help with some of the organizing. The other thing that universities are really good at is with the data collection and the data collection for the survey, but also the analysis of the survey as well, and developing that into actionable items. We have the expertise on campus to provide that kind of statistical support, but also report drafting, those types of things. So I mentioned before that, we're the logistical home, but this is really a community-driven effort, and we are just a partner. It's not the university leading it. It really is a partnership between the community and community members from a variety of organizations. So, and the other thing about this is every community looks a little bit different with regard to who's involved in their age-friendly process. And the thing that's really also important is you want people who are connected to senior services, but you also want to be inclusive of maybe people who aren't direct senior services providers, but still have some skin in this game. For example, in our community, that might be the Parks District. They are for people of all ages, but a lot of their customers are seniors. They have a vested interest in this. Something like local media, your local newspaper, how they're important for getting information out. Healthcare providers, the local government, we work very closely with the city planners from both of our cities, social service providers. Transportation, that's another good example of someone, of a community partner that is very important for older adults and people with limited mobility issues, but isn't there just to service seniors. but I want to talk about two age-friendly partners in particular. And the first is specifically older adults. So they are very critical to the process. The idea behind Age Friendly is that older adults really need to be involved in this process, that this is with older adults. It's not for older adults, it's with older adults, and they really need to be voices at the table. So it's really important that they're included from the get-go, included in the action plan, included in the survey design. And then the voices of older adults being captured in the survey, in your data as well. I'd also like to stress that it's important to include a diversity of older adults. This was one thing that we actually struggled with quite a bit when we were working on our survey, is that we had the population that took our survey tended to be wealthier and highly educated, and not necessarily reflective of the diversity within our community. So that is a big part of our action plan, is how can we reach out to a more diverse set of older adults in our community? How can we make sure that people of all income levels and races and education levels are included in this type of effort as well? And then the other partner that I want to talk about, that I particularly because we've worked with them a lot and they've been a great friend to Age Friendly, is Extension Services through the U of I. Now, Extension Services was a big help getting our survey completed. They actually helped us develop and implement our survey, and developed a tool to do this survey online, which is available to all of you as well. I've included the web address there at the bottom. You can go ahead and take a look at that. So they were a really great partner, just developing the survey, having the tool available, but also getting the word out in the community about the survey. And the other thing that's great about Extension Services is that they provide a lot of information and educational opportunities for older adults, like you're going to hear next from Chelsea and Carla. So I'd like to just return to this. So I'd say one of the critical things that about being an age-friendly community is really including the older adults, making sure that you're reaching them, but also making sure that a wide swath of community members are involved as well, that it's not just one group or one organization that's really driving the effort. You might want to choose somewhere like we have as a logistical home, but really to be inclusive of the people that this initiative will benefit, but also the organizations that have an interest in this as well. And so I know that we are going to move on to senior bullying next, but I wonder if we have a minute just for a question or two.
Sure. If anybody has a question right now, it doesn't appear. So at this point, and I don't see any in the chat box, so
Okay.
Please feel free to enter any questions in the chat box.
Or if something comes to you in the middle of the night, please also feel free to reach out to me directly. My email is right there. And if you want to know more information sort of about what Age Friendly Champaign-Urbana is up to, you can visit our Facebook page as well.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Bartlow, for that great information on age-friendly communities. And we're going to transition now into talking about bullying among older adults, which I think really fits in nicely with the respect and social inclusion domain that you referred to with your age-friendly communities presentation. So before we kind of introduce ourselves as presenters, I just want you all to think of that word bullying. And when I say that word, what image comes to mind? And for most people think that bullying is something that's done to children by other children. And really, as we have seen this attention and the focus on the social problem of bullying, it's become more prevalent and brought to our attention more in recent years. It's definitely evident that bullying can be perpetrated and experienced by people of any age. So we're going to talk about that for a little bit today. And just so you can kind of know a little bit about who we are, my name's Carla Belzer. I'm the Family Life Educator for the University of Illinois Extension. I'm in Unit 4, which is Carroll, Lee, and Whiteside counties. Chelsea, do you want to take a second here to say hi?
Hi, everybody. You'll be hearing from me in a moment. I'm from Champaign, Fort Iroquois, and Vermilion.
Wonderful. So, and I just wanted to throw up a little map, or put up a little map of kind of where we are in the context of the entire state. So, as you can see, there's only about 6 Family Life team members throughout the state, and we do provide programming and educational outreach on topics like we're going to introduce you to today. So, you know, we can be a great resource for any of those educational needs that you might have. So, to gain a better understanding of that bullying is happening among older adults and what we can do about it in our communities, we're going to take a brief look at some bullying behavior. We're going to talk a little bit about who the players are involved in these types of situations, a little bit about potential bullying situations, and then how to respond. So we have a lot to pack in our remaining time, but you know, I want you to think about if you have ever been bullied, or if you've ever known anyone that has been bullied. Think back to the time and the location, where it occurred. Maybe try to identify what that felt like, and if it's had any impact on your life. And you're probably not surprised to learn that 77% of youth have admitted to being the victim of one type of bullying or another, and about 40% of adults have been bullied in the workplace or even have been cyberbullied. And now that we're learning more and more about bullying as a social problem, the more we are understanding that it is in fact a problem that occurs not just to youth, but throughout the lifespan. Bullying among older adults is a relatively recently addressed phenomena. There is minimal research on this issue to date, and while articles about senior bullying have begun to appear on websites concerned with senior care or long-term care and in the mainstream media, there is a significant lack of scientific research on senior bullying. And, you know, we're all aware that bullying has been a problem that's been around for generations. It was first scientifically researched in the 1970s, and it's becoming more and more known as a public health issue. In fact, one of the communities that I live in, actually, our county health department has identified it as one of their public health concerns, and they're undertaking programming to address bullying in the community. And again, most of our focus is on youth bullying, and today we're going to talk about how bullying impacts older adults in the community. So bullying among older adults really was brought into public light back in 2010. So the Akron Beacon Journal, they decided, their newspaper in Ohio, and they decided that in response to increased media coverage of school shootings and youth suicide, this newspaper decided to host a call-in event on bullying. And they were really expecting to hear from school-age children and their parents, and they were stunned, shocked really, at the high number of older adults calling in to report bullying in their senior living communities. And from that event alone, senior bullying gained the attention of a variety of national sources, including Aarp, various media outlets, and that interest really piqued the interest of researchers and scientists. And Dr. Robin Boniface is really kind of the leading expert in this area of study. She's a professor at the School of Social Work at Arizona State University, and she became the de facto expert on this emerging field of research and understanding. And I mentioned earlier, there's not a whole lot of scientific research out there to date on the phenomena of senior bullying, but what is known and what research has been done shows that this problem can impact between 10 and 24% of adults living in senior living communities. Also, the majority of the research that has been done has been conducted in long-term care facilities and agencies, because that's where seniors live and it's a communal living space. However, I'd really encourage you to think of the phenomena of older adult bullying to happen, because it can and it does happen anywhere where seniors congregate. So that includes senior centers, that includes civic organizations. It can even include community organizations and events. So this is not a epidemic that's limited to just living communities. So the research that has been done is indicating that this is a problem, but it is difficult to magnitude the track. And we know from research completed on childhood bullying that even childhood bullying is underreported. So it's no shock, or it shouldn't be surprising, that senior bullying would also be underreported. So it's very likely that the numbers of individuals that are impacted by bullying among older adults is probably much higher than this 24%. So complicating the problem of this phenomena is that there's little evidence as to what actually causes older adults to bully. The literature that we completed, the literature review that we did, defines the causes of senior bullying as both simple and complex. So people are living longer. What we know is that social problems often grow statistically with population growth. So as people are living longer, it's more likely there's going to be some continued social problems. We also know that older adults are increasingly living in communal housing. As we get older, some older adults can experience a loss of power, a loss of control, and bullying really provides a means to regain power and control. Even some medical and psychological conditions can cause changes in our social, physical, and emotional health, which could also lead to episodes or incidents of bullying. So what's important to know today, we mentioned that we were going to define what bullying is, and to fully understand bullying in older adults, the first step is to define it. In the literature that we have found, the most commonly used definition comes from the Hazelden Foundation, and this definition is also a definition that is often ascribed to youth bullying. So bullying is a social and interpersonal problem that is characterized by intentional, repetitive, aggressive behavior that involves an imbalance of power and strength. And what's important to know about older adults and the impact of bullying on older adults is that word bullying often evokes an image of a child, children in the schoolyard as an example. And older adults often reject the term bullying because of that image. So some literature on the subject refers to bullying among older adults as social aggression, relational aggression, or even resident-to-resident aggression. But we use the term bullying because it's widely known and kind of even accepted by the general public. So this graphic is, or this image is kind of an easy way to remember the definition of what bullying is. It's a very good litmus test. And it also applies to bullying in among any age group. So we would need to remember that it is repetitive, it's definitely intentional, and there is some sort of power imbalance. Now I want to speak for just a second on the repetitive nature. With older adults, repetitiveness is not necessarily an indicator of bullying, because even one incident of bullying can have a significant negative impact on some individuals, especially those who might be experiencing poor physical or even cognitive health. So gerontologists are considering that even one non-repetitive incident of bullying is a very serious incident. So it's also important, as we are learning and understanding what the definition of bullying of what it is, it's also important to understand what it is not. So we need to distinguish it from other causes of aggression in older adults. And because most of the research was done in senior care living settings, the examples that were cited is that, residents may often act out by yelling or striking another resident or staff member, and those episodes of aggression might be attributed to some forms of dementia or other physical or mental conditions that person might have, and not necessarily an episode of bullying. So it's important to remember that bullying situations involve power and control. So individuals who experience dementia, aggressive behavior that's caused by frustration, even communication problems, they might not be cognitively capable of participating or being in a bullying situation. So I want to talk real briefly before I turn it over to Chelsea, the different types of bullying that's often seen among older adults, and there might be some surprises. So bullying that is common among older adults includes behaviors or actions that are verbal, physical, and then even antisocial or relationship centered. So these types of bullying often manifest themselves in either direct or indirect ways. Among older adults, verbal bullying is the most observed type of bullying for males, which is kind of interesting. Males are most likely to engage in verbal bullying. So these are things like name calling, insults, taunts, threats, even pointed jokes are examples of verbal bullying. And Dr. Boniface's research actually cites some specific examples of verbal bullying, which could be, even something as simple as, oh, everybody knows you're crazy, or everybody knows you're losing your mind. Those types of kind of taunts can be considered verbal bullying. Older adults often or also will exhibit physical bullying by pushing, hitting, destroying property. Physical bullying is the least common type of bullying among older adults, but it can and does happen. And both verbal and physical bullying are examples of direct bullying. And in direct bullying situations, attacks really, the aggression is overt, but the target might be unaware of the source of the aggression. So I want to move on just real quickly to the third type of bullying among older adults, which is antisocial or relationship-centered bullying. This is bullying that involves things like shunning or excluding, gossiping, or even spreading rumors. It can also include making fun of somebody's disability, using threatening body language, or even encroaching on personal space. The difficult thing about antisocial bullying, it's often the most difficult type of bullying to detect among older adults because bullies often target their victim in private to avoid being observed. So social bullying is a type of indirect bullying in that it uses exclusion to take power away from the individual. So in my community, I often go to the senior center. I'm often in McDonald's early in the morning, and the older adults are meeting in their coffee groups. And an example of antisocial bullying in those situations could be, not excluding people from the conversation. situation, or not letting someone sit in the seat next to them because it's a saved seat, even though McDonald's doesn't have any saved seats. So by excluding the target, the bully gains power. And also with antisocial bullying, it's important to know that the victim or the target often has a difficult time confronting social bullies, as they often don't know even who that bully is in the case of rumors or gossip spreading. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Chelsea to talk a little bit about the players in bullying situations.
All right, thanks, Carla. Can everybody see the presentation still? Can you see it, Carla?
Yes, I can.
Okay. All right. So as we go on, I'm going to talk about the players in the bullying situation, as well as how we can help somebody who's being bullied, or if you're being bullied, as well as some resources. All right, so now that we know that bullying is intentional and it involves an imbalance of power, let's look at the people who are involved. The people who are involved are the bully or bullies, the person who's targeted, and then the people who might be the witness of the situation. So the first one we have is the bully. Across the lifespan, most people who bully often need the power or control, and that's why they exhibit that bullying behavior. Bullies often get some kind of positive reinforcement from making their target feel threatened or fearful or hurt. So bullies often enjoy contributing with conflict with others, so they might purposefully kind of cause issues between people they know, or rile up friends and cause issues. They get pleasure out of that. Oftentimes bullies in general have difficulty tolerating individual differences amongst other people, or they lack empathy. They oftentimes have few positive social relationships. Older adults who bully often exhibit some of the following behaviors. You might see them intimidate others, try to boss people around. You might see them criticize or make repeated complaints about other people, or intentionally isolate or exclude people from an activity or an event. Some other things that you might see is that they have poor coping skills when it comes to loss. So those are some typical signs of a bully, or some signs of a bully, or what they would do to a target. Now we're going to look at what you will see from the target. Targets of bullying typically have three common things. Often they have a difficulty defending themselves. Often they do nothing to cause the bullying behavior. And third, they often experience a sense of powerlessness. And research has been conducted on senior bullying, has found that there are two types of people that are often more commonly targeted by bullies. The first one is the passive target. So when we think about passive targets, they're targeted for who they are, not what they do. These people usually have low self-esteem. They might have high anxiety or have some insecurities. If they're in some kind of communal living, they might be the person who has dementia or any chronic condition or developmental disability. Or they also might be chosen as a target because of another difference, such as racial difference, ethnic difference, spiritual belief. The second kind of target is a provocative target. So this person is chosen because of something that they do. They may be viewed as annoying or irritating, which provokes the bully. So maybe they intrude on space, or they interrupt in conversation, and because of this, then the bully targets them because of their behavior. The bully sees them as deserving of the conduct that they're going to receive. Then the third person in a bullying situation is a witness. Now, sometimes there may or may not be a witness present. Sometimes bullies kind of isolate their victim in a place where nobody else will see it. But if there is a witness or a bystander, sometimes, a bystander is somebody who does little or nothing to stop the action that's happening. And silence is action. And if you don't intervene, that means you are saying that the behavior that is occurring is okay. And oftentimes, people who are bystanders don't believe that the action is okay, but they prefer not to make waves. And they feel trapped kind of in the situation, like they're not really comfortable in that situation, but they don't really know what to do in that situation. And after the situation is over, they often feel guilty for not intervening. But bystanders often feel powerless to confront the bully, and they often don't intervene because they also don't want to become the new target of the bully. So when we think about this whole situation, no matter the cause or the location of the bullying, it can really have a serious impact on the individual. Physical health can quickly decline. Oftentimes people, their health will deteriorate if they are the target of bullying. And it really is a serious issue, especially with older adults whose health is already compromised. So it is something that we need to take seriously. As we look at bullying, it is important that we think about what bullying is and isn't. So, there is time when we have conflict between friends. That's not bullying. Argument between people of equal power, again, is not bullying. If it's accidental, not bullying. Normal relationship challenges, I'm sure you've all fought with your significant other or with friends, or even with somebody that you've worked with in a committee meeting or a work group, or friendly banter, when you tease somebody or call them a name that you've called them your entire life, and it's in a teasing, loving manner. So that's not bullying. It's bullying if it's, used to oppress them or to hurt them, if it's intentionally harmful. And as Carla said, a lot of times it's typically repetitive, but even with older adults, even one time is hurtful. If it's oppressive and it isolates the victim. One thing we do want to kind of discuss just for a moment, and this isn't the point of our presentation today, but some bullying actions can kind of fall into a criminal category, such as harassment, hazing, assault, or even elder abuse. So depending on the setting and the age of the individual, it is something just for us to be aware of. So elder abuse is defined as a single or repeated act or lack of appropriate action occurring within any relationship where there is an expectation of trust, which causes harm or distress to an older person. So, oftentimes we think of bullying as mistreatment by peers, but bullying can also be done by family members and neighbors, as well as elder abuse can be done by peers, family members, neighbors, depending if they are in their care or if they are in need of that person in some way. So just, if you're in kind of a setting and, you see something that happens that is kind of an elevated situation, be aware of that. Elder abuse often, sometimes it's not planned, it's not purposeful. Sometimes it is purposeful, but sometimes it's not purposeful. Sometimes it happens because of high stress or frustration, and people are, just really stressed out in their situation, and, it can, their frustration kind of overtakes them. And unfortunately, with elder abuse, it's one of the most invisible crimes, and so not that it should be on the fourth bullet down, it says acknowledged by family and communities as a way of life. Not that that's accepted, but a lot of times people just say, grandma really does want to support the grandchild financially. But if it's hurting the older adult and they can't financially afford their medication, then, is it financial abuse? Does that make sense? Just something to think about. Does it oppress or isolate the person to, a point of it being abusive? So, and again, we're not really going to get into it, but I just threw up some different types of elder abuse here. And at the end of the slideshow, we do have some resources at the end. So I just wanted to kind of throw that in there, even though that's not the main point of our session. I did want to include it. So then some things to think about on how we can help somebody if they are being bullied. Helping someone learn to be more assertive is the best way to help somebody who's being bullied. Help them learn how to stand up for themselves, help them manage their own feelings of anger, help them improve their communication skills, help them foster their own self-worth, recognize and treat underlying depression. Dr. Boniface cites that online assertiveness training videos such as The Art of Assertiveness by Molly Neese is a great resource. And I'm going to say that resource again if anybody wants to write it down. There's an online training video called The Art of Assertiveness by Molly Neese, N-E-C-E. And oftentimes these interventions are the most successful for individuals with who have good cognitive abilities. And unfortunately, those are not good for people who have any kind of dementia. So wrapping up here, if you are bullied, here's a list of things that could help. So if somebody is, living in a communal living situation or attends meal sites, or if you work in a recreation center, hopefully you have some kind of code of conduct to help people who go to where you work or that can help. But, if you're helping somebody or if you're being bullied, proactively deal with the situation early on, have an action plan, stand up to the bully. Don't let the bully know their actions bother you. So, it's kind of what your mom always said, ignore them. Maybe they'll go away. Take care of yourself and build your own resilience. Build up your self-esteem. Use assertive and effective communication. Really, talk to somebody about it. Share that experience with others and seek help because that really can, having community, having people on your side, not feeling alone is one of the best things for people. And then if you witness bullying, so if you're one of those, what we call the witness or bystander, we really want people to be what we call an upstander. And so instead of just being a bystander, do something, take action, speak up, support with words of kindness, enlist the help of others. It helps stop the person in their actions, and hopefully it tells the bully that it's not okay. All right. And again, bullies just need consistent limits that reinforce that bullying is not okay. And they too can benefit from empathy, communication, and respect of others. And just remember, being cranky or irritable does not mean that somebody is a bully. In everyday life, people do raise voices. We do have animated gestures and facial expressions from time to time. That's just people sometimes communicating their emotions. We all can get irritable due to pain, disease process, or even lack of sleep. So just remember that bullying is intentional and it involves power, and that can help you to kind of distinguish the difference between bullying situations and just normal, age-related conflicts. So here are some helpful resources for you. Each of these have some information on bullying on their websites. If you are in any kind of living situation as far as assisted living, long-term care facilities, even if you work at a meal site or in a recreation center, the very last, the National Center for Assisted Living has a great publication called Bullying Among Seniors that you can print off in a PDF. And that's really new. It just came out in last year, and it came out after we did this presentation. So we just recently found that resource. And then if you want any additional information about elder abuse, there's lots of wonderful information on the Illinois Department on Aging website, and it has all the information on who's a mandatory reporter, what is elder abuse, statistics here in Illinois, for more information there. So you can find us, all the Family Life Educators have a blog, and we write about different topics across the lifespan, and you can find us at goillinois.edu Family Files and our extension website, and we will take questions. And we appreciate everybody joining us today. Ken, do we have any questions?
I don't see any questions in the chat box. There was a comment about getting emailed the presentation, and Nancy addressed that. And so while we're waiting for someone to put a question in the chat box or speak up, Nancy's also putting a poll that we'd appreciate for you to take. It's just a very quick poll, and it helps plan for these programs in the future. So if you can reply to that. Very good program today. Thank you very much for being here. And
I have a question.
Okay, very good.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah, my question is, what if the bullying comes from the staff? What should elders do when bullying comes from the staff?
Yes, that can be a problem. So you can call ombudsman. There should be a number posted in the facility. But that should be reported because, yes, it can come from staff and not just from peers.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Again, I would like to thank our presenters today, Dr. Wendy Bartlow, Chelsea Byers Gerstenecker, and Carla Belzer for presenting today. And I would like to thank all of our participants for signing in. And as a reminder, a video recording of today's webinar will be available on the local government education website in a few days. I hope you will all join us for our next local government education webinar. So thank you. I think without seeing any other questions, I'm going to sign out, and thanks again for our great speakers and participants.